A final point I want to make is the government of India needs to be better informed, because the government of India, very busy in its agendas and its priorities, which are very commendable, those are very remarkable things, has unfortunately been infiltrated. Some of the centers of Indology have gotten Indians, Hindus related to the government involved in representing their case in Delhi. So these guys are coming around talking because they have friends, they have access, they're coming and talking. There is a discussion of a $50 million government of India budget to help Western Indology. Please note this. This is not official, but people who are proudly lobbying are bragging that they'll get that. Yeah. Whether they get that remains to be seen, but a lot of these things are done quietly until it's too late. Somehow, suddenly something gets announced. And then people sort of argue and fight and say, why wasn't there public discussion? And then it starts creating a sort of strange, negative atmosphere. So I would like, if people have connections, if people know somebody, to at least sound the alarm, that put the brakes on it. Like I was able to do with Sringeri. I went to the Shankaracharya. I was able to say, please, ultimately, I respect you so much that whatever you do, is fine. But please give me a chance to finish my book or finish my report. Look at it and then you can decide. At least have the other side of the story. This book is now out and you should have important people in the government read it. And call me, call the other side, and let's have a debate, let's argue the pros and cons. My case is very simple. The argument being made by the other side is that India cannot do its own R&D in Sanskrit because they don't have good people. The best people are Westerners. And I'm saying that's unacceptable. Firstly, I don't believe that's true. I think that the use of English language has kind of handicapped our people. And secondly, they have not funded properly. They're not able to create good careers for bright people. If these problems were resolved, and if we upgraded the training of our people on international discourse and so on, debates and so on, there is no reason our very, very bright Sanskrit people would not be upgraded to match and exceed other people's capabilities. If we can be so good in other fields, why can't we be the best in the world in Indology, in Sanskrit studies? Of course we should be. The best journals in Mandarin studies and China studies are in China, not in the United States. And they are controlled by Chinese editorial people. The best journals in the world on Japan studies are in Japan. French studies are written in French, not English. Arabic studies are in Arabic. Persian studies are controlled in Iran. Russian studies are in Russia. We are the only major civilization whose study is controlled elsewhere on the terms of other people. They have the adhikar to certify who's good and who's not good. And we are so obliged and happy and thankful to them for studying us. It's like, gee, thank you so much for considering me so important and worth your while. It's like when somebody asked King George V, I believe, why you taken the Kohinoor? According to one report, he said, the people of the empire should be very proud that I've chosen their diamond to wear on my head. That sort of thing. Like, I'm a thief, I come to your house, steal all your art and your jewelry, and you should be very proud that this very important guy is now wearing your jewelry. It shows a sign of your good taste, and I'm honoring your jewelry. I'm praising it. This is the kind of inferiority complex our people have. And so the battle is a very multi-pronged, multifaceted battle. It's a very risky battle for me. I stick my neck out and I get hit every morning. You don't know. The first thing I've stopped looking at email in the morning because I get 100 threats and whatnot, you doing this and that, all kind of stuff coming to me. And I'm alone. I have to figure out what to do. But more and more young people are also helping me deal with this kind of a thing. So it's a kind of thankless job. It's a job that can completely deplete your pran. It has to be done. Somebody has to do it. If a person has career ambitions in some institutions, he may not want to do it because it's too controversial. I have no career ambitions. I did this. I'm doing this for the last 25 years full time. I don't want anything out of it. So nobody can fire me. and nobody can hire me. I'm not for sale. So that being the case, I can take this risk, and that's what I'm trying to do. And so I want to conclude by saying that instead of the government giving money to Indology, the government, I would like to appoint a commission for studying and monitoring the state of Indology in the world. China has a commission that every year produces a report on how China studies is taking place in different countries. They have 100 plus Confucian institutes that study, that are named after Confucius. But these are institutes that are set up all over the world, and academics and various places, to promote Chinese idea of history, philosophy, ideology, language, all of that. So like Alliance Française does for French, and then there's people doing it for Russian and whatnot. And Saudis invest a lot in doing this for Arabic and so on. So China has these Confucian institutes spreading their grand narrative, their civilizational ethos, their idea of Sanskriti very successfully. And one of the projects of these institutes is to produce an annual report that goes to the Chinese government and industry and so on who is doing what on China studies in the world, what are they doing, who's funding them, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. They keep track. This is their monitoring. They are monitoring the state of China studies in the world. So at the very least, the Indian government should appoint a commission for the monitoring and evaluation of Indology in the world. This is what I would like to see happen. And rather than spending $50 million to give to those guys, we should just spend $1 million and study that first. I mean, no industrialist enters an industry without first getting a report. You don't just go enter an airline or start a hotel business or start some business in pharmaceuticals. If it is something new that you don't understand, you first hire a McKinsey or somebody like that to do an industry report. So instead of going and just dumping some money, $50 million, and actually feeding the other side, we have to put a tiny amount of that money for the first few years and understand the state of the art. And then we can negotiate with confidence, with knowledge. Even if you want to give money, you give it later on, after you have acquired a lot of knowledge on what is going on, so you can sit down as an equal with a lot of knowledge and talk to them as an equal and not have to be begging. The answer I get often is that if we give them enough money, we'll win them over. I call that feeding the crocodile. You feed the crocodile thinking he'll become like a nice dog, polite dog. Yeah. A lot of our people, I tell them, you're confusing. When the crocodile is showing his teeth, you think he wants to smile for a selfie with you. Yeah. I mean, the crocodile's DNA is not going to change just because you keep feeding him. So the DNA of the Western Indology is not because they're bad people, please. They are rooted in a certain civilizational assumption, a certain civilizational history, a grand narrative that they are taught from childhood. This is their DNA, this is how they are. Like we have a certain Sanskriti, sanskars we have. Chinese have their sanskars and their ideas. Arabs have their, Persians have theirs, like that. So the Westerners have a certain Western sanskar, a certain Western ethos, values, and it is very natural when they come and study Indology, they project those ideas to us. They may be very polite and diplomatic. Some of them are very, very decent people. They are very generous people. All of them are not, the kind that I'm worried about. Some of them are very nice also. But some of them are double, they play both roles. They'll be very, very nice. They'll come in a dhoti with a tilak and they'll do all these kind of things. But some of them will come as students at the feet of our gurus and teachers. But the teacher is not sophisticated enough to track what did he write when he went back. When he went back and he had to write, did he even acknowledge the teacher properly? Did he distort? And yesterday the traditional Sanskrit scholars, after they heard me, some of them said things like, what we write in 1 or 2 sentences, they often take 3-4 pages to explain, and they go on repeating the same thing and often get it wrong also. Yeah. Now, the correct protocol would be when a Westerner comes here and he picks the brain of a traditional Pandit, a traditional scholar, often for days, weeks, months. Correct protocol should be that as a courtesy, when he goes back and writes, before publishing the draft, he should send the draft back and say, is it correct? And give this person the right to put a rebuttal as at the end of his draft. So if he's written a 30-page paper, you should go back to the traditionalist and say, would you like to write 5-6 page response, rebuttal, your Uttar Paksh, your Purva Paksh and Uttar Paksh, what I've written. And that whole thing should be published. That is never done. So our traditional people are too naive to even bother. They are too afraid to pursue this matter and demand. So in a sense, they are being treated like native informants. Native informant is a very derogatory term. The anthropologists come to some poor villager to learn about that village so they can write about it. So they go to some village, talk to some poor women, and that's anthropology. The native informants, they are called, have no right to talk back, no mechanism to talk back, no understanding that they should talk back, not given the decency and dignity of who they are, a kind of a Western stereotyping of who they are to fit the human rights machinery. The human rights international campaign against our civilization is being fed with all this stuff. So the Pandits and the scholars who are so knowledgeable, and the Westerners should be sitting at their feet. This is the other way around. This scholar thinks he's obliged to that young fellow who's got a lot of money. If that guy gives him a ticket to go overseas, he thinks his life is made. So the economic asymmetry has been turned into an asymmetry of adhikar. We now have the money. Why are we dependent? I mean, this is very strange. We should be funding our people rather than funding foreign people. That's my battle for Sanskrit. Thank you very much. Individual. Because you may come from poor parents and make it rich. You may come from rich parents and be poor. Doesn't matter. It's your personal situation that should count. And then we'll get rid of the caste system if we were to do that. Secondly, the Akhand Bharat, I'm against that Akhand Bharat idea.